Well, brothers and sisters, I guess the Saints can say, I'll be home for Christmas, along with Mary Landry, and you know what, I'll be home for Christmas. Yeah, you'll be home for Christmas. But you know what? Mike Ainsworth won't be home for Christmas. Richard Yeager won't be home for Christmas. These two police officers in New York, these two officers, they were executed. They won't be home for Christmas. And you know why this is going on? Because it's being orchestrated from way up top in the brainwashing through White House over there. It's crazy. Everybody is being turned against everybody. It's Operation Destroy All Checks and Balances, and it's not by accident. All of these people out there that pretend to be reverends, and the President of the United States and all these other people, they're saying that they want to minimize hatred. They want to maximize hatred, brothers and sisters. They're saying they want to make our country a better country. No, brothers and sisters, they want to change our country. One way to destroy something, to completely destroy it, is to change it into something else completely unrecognizable. We're slowly being turned into a Marxist, communist, Sharia law nation, a one-world order. And we have to fight back, and we can still win if we do. Have a blessed day.
The Patriot, 504-556-9696. Let's go from the Patriot to Liberal Dan. How you doing, Liberal Dan? Welcome.
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning, Steve.
Hey,
I first I wanted to make sure that James and Mary's point was finished, was that I've seen that poll before. Not only did 20-something% of Republicans in Louisiana think that Obama was to blame for the response to Katrina, 30-something% did not know. They said that they did not know whether or not he was to blame. So that's just, that kind of completes the point. Now, we're talking about why these things are going on in New York, and look, I support all the good police officers. If you're going to be out there and protecting the rights of the citizenry and risking your life to do so, I have nothing but respect for you. But there are other police officers who do not, respect people and their jobs and the Constitution. Stop and frisk being one example, especially when it's used predominantly on minorities, predominantly black folks who are getting stopped and frisked, and how anybody can say that that's constitutional, that somebody can just be stopped on the side of the road is beyond me. Now, the reason, they have people being angry is because we have a history in this country of devaluing the lives of black people. You start this country off, 3/5 compromise. Black people are worth 3/5 the life of a white person. Slavery. Government turning fire hose on them because they can't sit at the same counters, use the same water fountains, use the same bathrooms, and then you have stop and frisk today, which is predominantly done on minorities, on black folks, just for walking around the. If you listen to Wendell Pierce, the actor, he was on a TV show one time. He was talking about one time where he was being stopped by the police. He made the comment where if he gets pulled over by the cop, he makes a conscious decision to first put the wallet on the dashboard to make sure that when the police officer asks for his identification, that he doesn't have to make an action that looks like he could be reaching for a gun. I, as a white person, have never had to worry about whether or not a police stopping me on the side of the road is going to be ending in my death, where black people do have that fear that every single police stop could end in their deaths. And that is a very sad state of affairs in this country, and shows that we as a country still do not value black people the same as white people.
Well, Dan, you're bringing up slavery, you're bringing up fire hoses. That's 50 years ago. That's 150 years ago. Today in this country, today in this country, it's not the same as back then. I mean, why are you revisiting all of that from decades ago?
I didn't say that it's the same, Jeff. I never equated it to the same. And yes, black people in this country are in a much better place than they were 50 years ago, 100 years ago.
Don't they deserve protection? Don't they deserve protection from the police? I mean, are you saying we should just take the police away from those areas and not protect those folks? And can the police do the job that we're paying them to do? I mean, do you want the police to be aggressive in going after criminals or not?
They absolutely should do the job that we pay them to do, which includes protecting the Constitution and protecting people.
All right, what are the percentages? What are the percentages of who commits the crimes, Dan? And do you go after folks who are more likely to fit the profile of someone, let's say you're looking for? Let's say you have a description of someone who committed a crime. Do you then go after people that fit that description and try to bring the person to justice or not? Do you say, oh, well, it's a black person we're looking for, we can't stop anybody and question them because we might be accused of racism?
But if it's a black person you're looking for, you can't stop all black people.
What if it's someone who fits the description, my friend? If it fits the description, you got to stop them, right?
If it actually fits the description, absolutely. But
all right.
There are many cases where people are stopped.
All right. You know what?
The police officer believes.
But Dan, it seems.
Wait, Jeff. Let me finish. Not because the police officers believe that this person is a suspect in a particular crime, but just because the black person is walking down the street, and that is unconstitutional. And I don't know how many. I can't understand. I cannot fathom conservatives that want to talk to me about the Constitution all day long, but apologists for such behavior. I can't understand. Do you think that it's okay that if a police officer sees a black person walking down the street, that just because that person's black, that person
No, you don't target someone just because they're black. You don't go after someone because of their race. So you go after people that might fit the description of a criminal you're looking for. You might go after someone if you think that they've committed a crime. You don't pick a person off the street and harass them. I agree. But I'll tell you one thing, Dan. It's a very tough situation being a police officer with all of this criticism hurled at them. No wonder we have 700 fewer officers here in New Orleans than we need. They're constantly being monitored, constantly being criticized, constantly being called of racism. And by the way, this police force is 51% African American. We've got a majority black police force here. So, again, I think we need to be encouraging more people to become police officers, not constantly criticizing them for a very, 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 very difficult job in very tough circumstances. Steve, your thoughts?
Well, there's a lot of issues that Dan raised. And, Dan, thanks for calling. You know, to not recall slavery and Jim Crow and all, and to say, well, that was 50 years ago, 150 years ago, in my opinion, is I think you have to recall it. I think that it's important to remember those conditions because they, in many respects, created what we have now.
But they prevent us from healing and moving forward. We're constantly marinating in those experiences, Steve. How do you then move forward? I mean, how do you then try to integrate and how to have good relations? They're constantly bringing up what happened 50 years ago, 150 years ago, and saying, well, that's the situation that these folks had to come from. So how do you then try to work together as a society?
Okay, so the other thing I was going to say is that I think you have to. I think that everybody has to take responsibility. You know, that's the message I've heard. I've heard in terms of Obama after these incidents that, you know, look, you've got to take responsibility. And I think that, you know, you can look to what happened 50, 150 years ago, but you've got to look at what is in front of you right now. And I think that those people who are, you know, say, committing these crimes, it's a very unfortunate situation. They are products of what existed before, but to not hold them responsible for their particular actions is, you know, is just not going to help them or society at all.
Here's what I want to know. I mean, are we going after the people that looted? Are we going after the people in Ferguson that burned down buildings? I mean, has there been the same sort of effort to go after those criminals as there has been to go after Officer Darren Wilson? You had, of course, Eric Holder ride into that city and start meeting with the family members of Michael Brown, not with the family members of Officer Wilson. You've got two cops who have now been assassinated weeks later because of protests. You've had this guy, this black, he called himself a guerrilla, Muslim, who was, I think, influenced and agitated by people like Al Sharpton. Shouldn't we be able to say, hey, Al Sharpton and others who have called for protests, who have whipped up a lot of anger, even Louis Farrakhan, who actually called for violence, shouldn't those folks be held somewhat responsible for this, Steve?
You know, I've been looking at this for the last couple of days, those very issues. Number one, Farrakhan, I think that Farrakhan is in a class of his own. I didn't hear what he said about this or what he has said in the recent weeks, so it's hard for me to say. But certainly I think that nobody should listen to Farrakhan just about anything now.
But Steve, you see videos of his speeches. There are hundreds and hundreds of people there at the speeches. They're standing up, giving him an ovation.
And wait, hold on, and so
he's got a big audience.
No doubt he's got a big audience. He's had a big audience for quite a while. Again, I don't know what he has said, so I can only tell what he has said in the past. But moving on, if I might.
No, but I'm going to share with you what he said.
Okay,
it was reprehensible. I mean, it was a call to violence.
Okay, please let me.
And that just happened. And he goes on to say, "We'll tear this GD down." And there you go, Steve Sabludowsky. That was Louis Farrakhan. You had not heard those comments?
No, I read them a few seconds ago. So yeah, it's really, again, I don't accept anything Farrakhan says. Now, Reverend Sharpton, I don't know what he has said during this time. I mean, I've seen things on TV. But let me just say this: I think it's a.
But the guy who killed those officers was a Muslim. And I think he could very well have been influenced by Louis Farrakhan in his call for violence.
Yeah, that speech was in Baltimore, wasn't it? And the guy was from Baltimore. Am I correct?
I think the guy had actually gone to Baltimore prior to killing of the police officers in New York and shot his girlfriend there. So he had been in and out of a lot of different places. Could have been there for that speech. Not sure.
Well, anyway, to me, I think the bottom line is that it's really difficult, in my mind at least, to blame, say, somebody, whether it is, say, Sharpton, who I really do not like at all, for this particular killing in Brooklyn. I don't see the correlation. I mean, there are so many ifs there. That's like blaming, say, Fox News for some of the killing that occurs in the schools that the liberals want to do. I don't equate the two.
But you don't think there could be a call for Sharpton and Farrakhan to be responsible for their rhetoric? I mean, the fact that they're making such incendiary comments.
But that's
you don't think that should be criticized and called out?
Yeah, I do think that should be criticized. I think that the issues
shouldn't we be able to say that could have been a factor in this case? That needs to be investigated.
How much of a factor is that? I mean, or either one of the statements that they made.
What if this guy was in that crowd that day? What if he was in his community? I mean, I don't know. I mean, Farrakhan calling for violence and then 2 police officers assassinated, that to me, I don't know, is pretty troubling.
Let me say this. Again, I hear people on different talk radio shows, on TV, etc., and on both sides, and it's very inflammatory. And are we to blame them for some of the things that actually do happen? If you got proof that this guy who shot those guys in Brooklyn, the cops in Brooklyn, that he actually was influenced by Farrakhan, then I think you can directly blame. Okay,
well,
but other than that,
there's a difference between people talking about, hey, the liberal agenda is bad, and we're supporting the Tea Party, and being somebody on talk radio, versus a guy at a speech calling for violence, like Farrakhan. I mean, there's a big difference there.
What I'm saying is, what I said.
That's dangerous hate rhetoric, in my opinion.
Jeff, what I'm saying is that after an incident, a lot of liberals will blame Fox for what does happen.
For what?
Well, that's the point I'm making is that I think you can't blame the other side rhetoric. I don't think you can do that. And I'm not just talking about Fox News. I'm talking about a lot of the talk radio.
But I think you cross a line when you call for violence. When you call for violence, what Farrakhan did in that speech, when they say when you kill one, then if you kill another, then we're sitting at the table. When they can no longer go to Wendy's afterwards, he's implying that they need to be killed. And then, of course, in the span of a few weeks, you have 2 officers assassinated, and the guy is a Muslim. Farrakhan, of course, is a radical Nation of Islam leader who I think is a vicious anti-Semite, vicious anti-white hater. I think he's an anti-American hater. Big fan of Gaddafi's, big fan of the enemies of the U.S.
Yeah,
this guy goes around this country making millions of dollars, speaking to big groups, and calling on folks to commit violence, which I think should be. I think Eric Holder, if he wants to investigate anybody, should be investigating that guy. Hang on, Steve. We'll try to get some of these calls in. 504